So for our model, it was really hard to get exact dimensions because we didn't really know what the two other teams were going to be their finished product, and our sorter mesh machine is going to be based on that. So for our first concept, we're actually going to do like about a mesh, which then the rocks would be able to move through. Interactive. Which would then sort out the rocks. And with that, we'd have 3 different ways of actually designing our mesh, which Bailey would talk about. So for the 3 different ideas, it would be one would be where you would have the slots would be interchangeable. So there would be steel bars, and if you wanted the biggest diameter, so about an inch, you would have more room. If you wanted to have a quarter or a half inch, you would put more steel bars into different slots, which would then make the diameter smaller, so then you would get smaller rocks to sort through. Our other concept would be 3 different meshes, so it'd be one entire intact mesh just for a quarter inch, one entire mesh for a half inch, and then one for the 1 inch. Our third concept for this idea would be one long mesh, which you would be able to pull through the design, where one part of this mesh would be the half inch, the second part would be the quarter inch, and one would be the inch diameter, not in that direction though. But so then if they wanted to change from 1/2 to a quarter inch, they could just slide it over very easily and not have to waste a lot of time on that.
So the second concept is it's a similar system, but it's just for, instead of having a mesh, if they're not super peculiar about them being like an exact perfect quarter inch diameter, so if they want just at least one dimension to be quarter inch or half inch, but it doesn't matter if it's more rectangular, it would be this system here, and they would be adjustable, like that would be max size, which would be 1 inch, and then by just sliding this grate up, you could then like make it a smaller, so it would only let quarter inch through or half inch through. And so that would be if they don't want very like high tolerance, like they're okay if they're more rectangular or oval, but they need them to be at least just a minimum, or their smallest diameter is a quarter inch or half inch.
Alright, so the last and third concept that we came up with was pretty much this round drum with mesh surrounding it. And so rocks would be tilted, and rocks would come in the top. The smaller rocks would be sifted out and be collected in a catch pan, and then the large rocks would roll to the bottom all while it's being rotated. And the way that you would account for different sizes is you could have 3 different sizes of mesh around this drum, and like maybe a cover like that covers 2/3 of the drum, so we have one size exposed. And I think this would be effective. It would just require some power.
So our power for this would either be manual cranking or try to incorporate it with the cranking from the rock crusher already.
And with either of the mesh ideas, there would need to be some vibrations coming through from the crushing process to shape the rocks through the grate, and to shape the rocks that are too big off of the grate so it doesn't clog the grate.
So that's our design. Is there any questions?
So how often do you need to clean up the mesh? Like you have a bunch of big rock like crack all the.
Well, hopefully we'll have it tilted, or we'll have some kind of maybe a vibration mechanism, just a quick linkage, just shaking it back and forth to shake the big rocks off, and we'll have the big rocks collected in this other separate container to be recycled through.
That's why we kind of like thought that the circular drum would be a good idea, because there'd be something making it spin.
You have more space
And
to
you have more space,
to
yeah,
hold,
and the big rocks will be rolling down automatically.
So it's just a concept a lot harder to put together.
And then it also is dependent on how well the on how well the crushers would act. So if it crushes the rocks really efficiently, then we wouldn't have to really worry as much as the rocks getting clogged. If it wasn't as efficient as we would hope, then we would have to potentially either have a little slit where we could have kind of like a hoe or something that we can move down so we can kind of scrape them clean and go down a chute that we would have. So the sorter would be slanted, and if the rocks didn't go through, we would have the hoe go down and it'd go down a chute into a bucket where those people could recycle those rocks into the crusher again.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Which one do you guys like the best?
Personally, I like this one the best.
I like the drum one the best.
I like the drum one the best.
I'm gonna go with the drum one.
Yeah, talk about that
Yeah.
This
in
one.
your team meeting.
Mainly because this was like, I helped create a lot of this, so I put a lot of effort into slicing all of the cardboard into it. But it honestly does depend on the rock crusher, on the crushing group, and how it will be able to go concisely into our sorter. So depending on what you guys would create, it will then determine if we want to do, if for both of us or for our whole entire team, if the drum would be easier, if this slanted sorter would be better, or potentially the different grates would be better.